Welcome to our first Professional Learning mini module. Mini modules consist of a 5-minute training followed by a 5-question formative assessment. This module is a 5-minute overview of learning targets. For this mini module, there are 2 learning targets. I can construct appropriately written learning targets that include both the learning intention and the success criteria. I can use appropriately written learning targets to increase the effectiveness of instruction. We will first focus on constructing appropriately written learning targets. Before we can construct a learning target, we must define and describe a learning target. Learning targets frame a lesson from the student's point of view. A learning target helps students to grasp the lesson's purpose. Why is it crucial to learn this chunk of information on this day and in this way? Learning targets written in a student-friendly way are often posted beginning with the words "I can." Learning targets should clearly state what you expect students to know, understand, and/or be able to do at the end of the lesson. This is called the learning intention. Learning targets are written using observable, measurable actions and should align with the content standards identified. This component is called the success criteria. A learning target is the sum of a learning intention and a success criteria. This slide breaks down our first professional learning target into its basic components of success criteria and learning intention. The learning intention is appropriately written learning targets that include both the learning intention and the success criteria. The success criteria for this learning target is I can construct. Construct is the verb that will show success in our learning intention. Notice the verb construct. The verbs in a learning target are observable and concrete. They provide concrete evidence that allows for assessment of mastery. Use verbs such as construct, list, show, use, apply, define, identify, match. Stay away from verbs such as understand or know. Now let's look at a student example. I can identify rain, snow, sleet, and hail. I can compare rain, snow, sleet, and hail. Notice the 2 different success criteria, and notice the learning intention is the same for both sets of learning targets. The 2 different verbs come from 2 different depth of knowledge. Identify is a recall verb. It's a level 1 depth of knowledge. Compare is a strategic thinking verb. It's a level 3 depth of knowledge. By changing the verb in the success criteria, we change the depth of knowledge of the criteria. These 2 learning targets have the same learning intention, but a different expectation for success criteria. This is the depth of knowledge levels with identify and compare shown. Do you notice the difference in the depth of knowledge of our 2 learning targets by changing the verbs? Now, let's practice creating a learning target. Take a moment and develop the appropriate success criteria and learning intention for your learning target. What verb did you use? Did you use a verb that's concrete and observable, such as list, show, use, or apply? Did you stay away from a verb that's not observable and is abstract, such as understand or know more about? Remember, conceptual understanding is always the end goal of a learning target, but students must show that they understand, not just merely state that they understand. They must meet an observable success criteria. Here's two more student examples. Our first example, the success criteria is I can write, and the learning intention is research notes using keywords and phrases. The second learning target, the success criteria is I can show, and the learning intention is the relationship between multiplication and division. Now that you can construct learning targets, we will address our second learning target of using learning targets to increase the effectiveness of instruction. There are three sequential ways to use learning targets to increase the effectiveness of instruction. First, teachers must post learning targets in a highly visible location. Once learning targets are posted, teachers must refer to the learning intention and success criteria in learning targets to assess and monitor learning. Once targets are posted and the teacher is referring to them, students are trained to explain the learning intention and the success criteria. You should now be able to affirm our two learning targets. Once you construct your appropriately written learning targets, designate a highly visible posting location. This slide shows two exemplar learning target postings. Please consider these for the next steps in your classroom. This concludes our overview of learning targets. If you are unable to affirm the two learning targets, please watch the overview again. When you are able to affirm our two learning targets, please proceed to the formative assessment.